Hello everyone, B1B Flyer here, and I just wanted to show you a video on how to do some modifications to make either a variant involving pinning and drilling and using some tubing. This is aluminum tubing, you can use brass tubing. I'll show you how I use those to modify weapons and make gun barrels and things like that. So what I've got here is an Enforcer 3. I want to make the 6T version. I've already added a hand, so what I've got to use that I want to change around is put the Gauss rifle on, and I'm using a Zeus AC arm because I think if I cut it off at the back and mount it like this and then extend the barrel, I think it'd make a good Gauss rifle. I originally had a different piece on there and I ended up not liking it, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you how I go about modding. To give you an idea, this is some brass tubing, or I'm sorry, aluminum tubing. You can also use brass. I like the aluminum because it cuts easier. I can file down the lip on the edges, and because you won't really see there, it has a small opening that you can actually use to pin, and if you drill it out, it drills very easily, so you can use some of those smaller drill bits and you can actually open up the end of the barrel to a diameter that suits you or for whatever purposes. So here's an example of a pike that I did using to make AC5 barrels. You can see how this compares to the original pike barrels there. There's a little bit beefier, so a good AC5 representation. And for this, a Gauss rifle, and I want to get that kind of a tapered down effect. So what I've done is I've already got a pin here from the previous mod, so we're not going to really work on him. What I want to show is how I go about modding this. So with this, I've already taken off the panel lines on the area that I want to use. I filed them down and scraped away any of the flash. There was a little detail here I took down because I want a flat surface to help me make an attachment there. And then I put a pilot hole here for the drilling that I'm going to do for the arm. And then I also started 2 holes at the barrel end, starting with a pilot hole, and then I started working way up with my drill bit. This is a 1/16 drill bit, and that allows this small bit that I already cut with a tubing cutter. If you don't know how to use these, there's plenty of videos on how to use that. I think even KNS has a video on their site, but you basically just throw it into the little groove there, and you just slowly tighten down and spin around, and you get a nice clean cut. And then you just file down the lip a little bit, and you have a nice smooth barrel. So what I've done is I've taken it down. I started with the smaller diameter to try to keep that as centered as possible because this diameter is very close to that outer edge, and I'd like it to be almost a taper that looks like it kind of bends into that or blends into that barrel. So I've been using this to kind of guide where that larger drill bit's going to go, and it's gotten slightly off center, which I'm going to see if I can make this work. So I'm going to apply pressure as I'm drilling. I'm going to push away because on the left side it's thinner, on the right side it's a little thicker. So what I'm going to do is try to just kind of steer that drill bit and get it to bite on the material I want it to bite on and not take out any more on the side that's a little thin. You just go slowly. You don't need to try to rush through it. I definitely wouldn't use a power tool or anything like that to do this type of drilling, especially since you're drilling towards your fingers. Alright, so I think I've got it opened up pretty well, and it looks pretty good. And I'm just going to test fit this, and sure enough it slides right in. So what I might consider doing is pinning that in there, but I think we'll see how it looks once I get this barrel cut. I wanted to do the majority of the work while I still had something to hold on to. So now what I'm going to do is I have options to cut. I've shown saws, I've shown blades. I'd like to keep this arm. Maybe I'll use it for something later. So I'm going to attempt to cut it with my hobby knife. Get a cutting board or a self-healing mat. I have that off my other work area, and I wasn't going to put both of them on here. I have a glass desk, so this isn't really ideal. So just one moment while I go and cut this on my mat here. All right. Again, all the more reason to have a sharp hobby blade. That's a pretty clean cut. That arm is still usable for something else or a bit maybe later on. But you can see off the back now, pretty decent. Pretty decent. Cut that won't involve too much work here. Just kind of level it out. Hit it with the file. And I might later on drill a couple of little detail holes. That's another thing that these little drill bits are really good for. In fact, I'll just demonstrate that right now. I'm just going to put 1, 2. 3. Then I'm just going to take this and put in each of those pilot holes. I'm not drilling for depth, I'm just kind of adding some detail. That one's a little off. Just to make it visually different, since that back was just a kind of a boring flat surface at that point. And you could use putty or something like that to kind of make something interesting. And then be careful when you do this. I'm going to put that blade right in between the two. I'm just going to rock it back and forth a little bit, gently, and then side to side. I've now created a panel line. Now the back has, kind of something on it, so when I go to paint it up, it'll look kind of interesting. And you could add something, you could put putty in. Maybe I'll change my mind with that later, but that's just an example of how you can quickly do something with a small flat surface. So now I'm going to pre-fit. I have a bit of an angle on this, so I'm just kind of looking at how I want to make this slide into that joint. And I probably could have done this before. In fact, I probably should have. But I've already made the cut. We're here now. As long as you're able to hold on to something. But there's been several times where I've wished I hadn't cut certain things or flash or cut a part off, and then go back and wished I would have done some cleanup or done some modification while I still had more material to work with. Sometimes you don't have an option, but if you think it through and plan ahead, yeah, I think that's going to look nice. So I'm going to take a little bit more depth, and I'll probably take just a little bit off of that pin so that I can have both sides give a little bit and don't drill through that other side. There we go. So that's what it looks like from the side. And now we can get an approximation of that barrel. I think maybe a little shorter. And obviously I could cut this down. Unfortunately, when you get this short with the tubing though, you're kind of limited on putting it into the tubing bender because you have to have something to rotate with. So I'm going to just go deeper on this barrel here. Which will also give me more room and lessen the need to pin the tubing. If you have to go shallow and pin it, again, no big deal, just center them up, pre-fit it. Take your time. All right. A little bit of metal left in there. There we go. I like that. That'll work nicely. So now all I have left to do is glue it together and then fill the gap around the joint, and that'll be a Enforcer 6T with a cool little mod. Thanks for watching. Post your questions or comments below. Visit our website at camospecs.com or go over our Facebook page. Please subscribe. Y'all have a good one. Thanks for watching.